Well, in continuing the big game coverage post reaction, we get Terminello's take. Hey, Louie, how are we?
I'm doing well. Alex, you doing okay?
Well, you know what? We're going to have a mix of young voices and veteran voices. We got you, we got Dean, we got Ryan Pagano coming on this week. So it's going to be a mix of reaction this week. How about that?
Well, you have the old guy here, and then you have the young guys.
Never,
Um,
never old, Lou. You're as youthful as ever. So let's
well,
talk
I
about
got to
this
say a
game.
couple of things before we start. We start. How wrong was I last week? How saying it was going to be a terrific game, and you can't go against Mahomes, and you can't go against Mahomes until he loses. Well, now they lost. I
And
never
what did I say all season? I feel like you cut up a reel of me saying every win they've had has been unsteady. I don't trust them in the playoffs. And while they got there to the Super Bowl, a lot of the flaws that everybody was saying showed up on Sunday, right?
No doubt about it. Obviously, they had trouble with the Philadelphia defensive front, like we said last week,
Mm-hmm.
that they were going to have trouble with their defensive front, the speed and the mobility of them, and obviously having a Tui who's an all-pro guard go out to tackle. That was just a killer for them. But the better team won. We said all year the Eagles had a better roster than anybody in the league, and they proved it. That they're the Super Bowl champions, a deserving Super Bowl champion. Now, I would not have given Jalen Hurts the MVP. Yes, he played a very solid game. I think he threw the ball better in the last two games than at any time during the course of the season against the Commanders and against the Chiefs. But defense won that game for Philadelphia, led by Josh Sweat. He had 2.5 sacks. He had 6 pressures. Obviously, the Eagles' defensive front was harassing Mahomes the whole game. You had to give it to a defensive player. You had to give it to Josh Sweat, in my opinion. But the quarterback is the low-hanging fruit. It's easy, but
Well, and you know what? The Manning throw to Tyree will live forever. Even the Manningham throw in the second Super Bowl, they beat the Patriots, but they wouldn't have won those Super Bowls if they didn't have the defense, and I believe that's true in this case as well. And
absolutely, it's very
and
similar, Alex, to those games.
and how wild is it? We saw Brady, who you know what? I think he did okay as announcer. I prefer Kevin Harlan in Westwood One Sports. That's my guy. I love listening to him. But kudos to Kevin Burkhardt, a local guy, right? Calling another Super Bowl for Fox, which is pretty cool. But the point is, you saw Brady. He was watching exactly what he underwent about 17 years ago. I think that's kind of a weird full circle moment right there.
It is, and I thought Brady was okay in the first half. The second half, the game was so bad. I mean, you knew that the game was over, and it's hard to try to juice up a game like that if you're a play-by-play
But I
guy.
want to get the cut because tomorrow is Lincoln's birthday, and he literally said the Eagles are up by 4 score, and I'm like, see, that's a great tribute to Abe Lincoln right there.
A good catch, a
Uh,
very good catch.
Speaking of good catch, Cooper DeJean, I was making this point yesterday. Maybe you'll agree or disagree. If there wasn't a Jaden Daniels in the Rookie of the Year running, right? DeJean was up there. I mean, he had quite a year for those Eagles.
Oh, he would. I mean, obviously, it was a great pick, a great pick for the Eagles. They have the two young guys in the back, DeJean and Quentin Mitchell. Verse won the defensive player. Yeah, deservingly so for the Rams. I mean, he's a great edge rusher. But DeJean was, he was one of the finalists for Defensive Rookie of the Year. One of the things that you can't criticize anybody in this game as far as strategy, I don't believe. But I'm just going to throw a little criticism to Andy Reid. And last week we said he's not only a great coach, he's also a great offensive coordinator. I did not think he had a great game as an offensive coordinator last week. The first 13 plays that the Chiefs ran, he passed 12 times. So they never established the run. And then they knew that their offensive line was getting the crap kicked out of them. And at halftime, Andy Reid and the chief offensive staff made no adjustments to try to alleviate that pressure. I mean, right away they had 2 sacks in that first minute of the second half. So, hey, everybody has a bad day. All I know is, as a fan of the New York Jets, I would love to be in the Super Bowl 5 times in 6 years and win 3 of them. So
Well, I'll just take having the Giants colors on the Empire State Building after Super Bowl. Okay, that's what I'll take at this point. So, the other thing about this game was there were a couple of things, and I guess they listen to me, the Saints, because I said pay Kellen Moore, and sure enough, they're going to pay him to be their head coach. But he outlasted a defensive Hall of Fame coordinator in Spagnuolo. He's a Hall of Fame coordinator, right? Do they have those things in the Hall of Fame or what?
I mean, they don't. They've never put a coordinator in the Hall of Fame. I think they're going to have to, because the coordinators, many years ago, we didn't. Not even many years ago, not too long ago. Yeah, we knew of Bill Arnsparg with Miami and Belichick. But now the coordinators are front and center, whether offensive or defense. They have taken a different mantle in the administration of a coaching staff. They're important.
And what changes all that debate now? Because all these coordinators are getting hired as head coaches. So all of the Campbell staff is now basically a head coach.
Yeah.
A lot of the Belichick coordinators are now head coaches. I mean, it's a thing. They have developed in their coordinator role to become a great head coach.
Yeah, and some of them, Alex, some of them, when they get the chance to be a head coach, flop.
Not always great, right?
But they're great coordinators. So, but that is so important in modern football. You have to have an outstanding coordinator, both offensive and defense, and special teams coordinator also. Very important.
But Vic Fangio not letting the Chiefs, and I know it's his defense, but he was coordinating in the right way to not let the Chiefs get anywhere near midfield till the third quarter. Whoever, as I said yesterday, who can we say that about with any other game with the Chiefs? I've never seen that ever with the Chiefs. I mean,
it's remarkable. They went the first 42 minutes of the game before they crossed midfield.
And then 3 turnovers for Mahomes. Now, my fiance Gabby, who was actually rooting hard against the Chiefs, believe it or not, we're all chiefed out. Okay, we're all a little chiefed out.
I get it.
She thinks it got to his head. Did this three-peat thing get to his head a little bit, you think, or no?
It did not. It did not. The three-peat thing didn't get to his head. They're still a dynasty. They're still going to be great. They're still going to be one of the favorites next year. Mahomes is still the best player in the league. None of that has changed. You just can't win every year. And Philadelphia had a better team.
Did we see a foreshadow with the Xavier Worthy connection for touchdown? Like, could that be the new Kelsey Mahomes thing if Kelsey, as his time
moves obviously he's younger. We don't know if Kelsey's going to be playing next year. I have a feeling Kelsey will play. I don't think he wants to go out on such a terrible loss.
Right.
But, I mean, Worthy's their best receiver, without question. He's their fastest receiver. But again, Alex, it was no game. I mean, it was 40-6 with 3 minutes to go.
So, but I want to mention about Vic Fangio. People may not know he was 0-6 against him as a Broncos.
0-8.
0-8.
Well, you're right. 0-6
with the Broncos.
With Miami. 0-2 with Denver. You're right.
So, I mean, what a change. What a change of pace. And, this Eagle team had basically the same personnel. I know Saquon changed a lot of that culture as well. Everybody was highlighting the week 5. You talk about it too. Sirianni yelling at the fans. I mean, this was a turmoil team. And yet, here they are. They just look like a different team than they were back when the Hurts Sirianni duo made it against them a few years ago. So,
well, they both were younger, and they both gained experience. Too. Now you go back to that incident of Sirianni yelling at the fans, and they had I don't know if they had their bye week the next week, but right around that time, and everybody was saying, "Oh, you don't want to get your bye week early in the season." I think that helped them. I think having the bye week that early in the season helped pull them together, and they only lost one game the rest of the way. And Alex, if you remember that game, if Devontae Smith holds on to that third down pass, they wouldn't have lost any games post bye week.
It's amazing when the Commanders beat the Eagles in that signature game for Jaden Daniels. I really thought we were going to see a new king of the NFC East, and yet Eagles prevail. And you did say early on, still watch out for them. No matter how under the radar, no matter how shaky they could be, they're still a threat. And clearly, they won the Super Bowl, so they're always going to be a threat. Now,
Yes.
for
Mm-hmm.
the Giants, I'm hoping seeing Barkley win it a year after leaving the Giants motivates them to do right by their running backs, have a better offensive line. I mean, this draft, all eyes are going to be on the QB, but we see how important it is for a front line. And you know what? You put Tyrone Tracy behind a very solid front line, the Giants could be in the postseason next year.
Well, I mean, they could have a very potent running game. Obviously, they need linebackers. They need to build up an offensive line. They need a quarterback.
Is
Uh,
Stafford the answer? I mean, he's getting older, but he's still successful. I mean,
I don't know why, and I guess I heard that this morning that Stafford might be up for trade. First of all, I don't know why the Rams would trade him because they're still in Super Bowl mode. Um, it's not like they have to go through a rebuild. So I don't know if this is real or fake, but I don't understand why the Giants would have any interest in
I saw one mock trade trading Devin Singletary. No, Singletary is part of that running game. You keep him there. I mean, he's a good part of that running game. Now, one other thing before we get to, because there is another thing that happened this weekend that no one really is talking about except maybe you and I, and the premiere of the St. John's Red Storm Rising on Vice Sports tonight is going to be pretty cool. We got to talk about them upsetting UConn on Friday. We got to talk about that in a second. But before we get there, you're a historical guy. Ever seen a coordinator or someone on the Super Bowl sideline, win or lose, end up going back to the host team as the head coach a year later? I mean, this thing with Kellen Moore, I'm obsessed with it because I've never seen something where a coach or a coordinator goes to the host team of the Super Bowl a year later. I've never seen that before.
Again, I would have to think about that to see if a coordinator went to a host city. Interesting. Um,
And could be a good
he's
foreshadow for New Orleans. I mean, you never know. So,
he has his work cut out for him. He does, and
well,
you know
because I don't
what
even know who their quarterback's going to be. Like, I don't know what he's walking into right now in New
I
Orleans.
mean. He has Derek Carr. I think he has 2 more years left on his deal. I mean, he's 33, so he's not ancient. Do they keep him? Alex, there's so many teams looking for a quarterback. That's the
Well,
thing.
your Jets are in the. Do you think the Jets handled this right? I feel like they went to the press instead of just handling it. And it looks like another botched moving on statement. Am I right or no?
I would say no, and I can go either way on this. I understand why, uh, the new general manager, the new coach, the new administration, uh, as far as football operations go, they want to establish long range success.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, the best quarterback that's out there, unless somebody shakes loose, is Aaron Rodgers. But again, you're only going to have him. There's only 1 year left on his deal, so I don't know if they're going to trade him. If they're going to wait till June 1st to cut him, whatever works best for the cap. Um, I could have gone either way on it. If it was me, if I was in that lot, if I was in that room, I would have
Mm-hmm.
kept him. I would have kept him because
Well,
it's not like there's somebody better. Now that
well,
being
Aaron Glenn
said,
is either trying to make a name for himself as a head coach going in guns blazing with this, or he's really serious. I think it's a mix of both. I think he wants to make that first impression with the Jets organization, and I think he wants to make legitimate changes as he's taking over, right? New sheriff in town. So,
well, again, there's this misconception that everybody in the locker room hated Aaron Rodgers. Well, I watched a lot of guys on Radio Road last week, and even during the season, that's not true at all. The media hates Aaron Rodgers.
well, they
He
pin him with all these different stories about him, whether it's
right.
the psychedelic
The media
complex and
hates
all that.
Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers knows how to play the media.
He
He
does.
does.
That's why he might end up a Giant. That would be so funny if he ended up on the other side of the locker room. I mean, I don't
I don't.
know.
I mean, if that happens, it would be a shocker because then he's 41. If he gets
Mhm.
banged up and he misses games, and the Giants go 4-13, Dable will be gone. Joe
Mhm.
Shane will be gone.
All right.
If they draft a young quarterback,
Mhm.
they have to go through the growing pains. They'll buy some time, I believe.
Now, wait a minute. I do want to say this. Saquon and Eli, although he was injured a little bit in the beginning, they did play with each other. And I just think, imagine if Barkley had that front line and Manning on front line. It could have been a Manning Barkley Super Bowl back in the day. That would have been really fun, but I can only wish. So let's move on because I do want to mention, unless you had other thoughts on the Super Bowl, I'm pretty much, there was nothing else to talk about. The game happened. Philly went into chaos as always. I mean, it just.
It was 34-0. The game was over.
So let's talk about a more meaningful moment in our area. St. John's beating UConn Friday night. What a way to kick off Super Bowl weekend. More importantly, two statement games back to back. We've talked about it, Lou. They're for real. But why is Pitino such a successful second-year head coach? I hear that's the thing about him. He's a successful second-year head coach of these teams.
He's a great coach. He built winners quickly. Last year they were on a bubble. They probably should have been in, could have been in. We said it last year. They would be a bubble team. We say this year they should go deep into the tournament, probably to the second week of the weekend of the season, of the postseason. He's a great coach. They're a great defensive team. It's funny. I was reading yesterday. I guess I was reading today. He picked out 35 or 36 errors in the game. Now, you win a game at Storrs, Connecticut, and I think St. John's might be better than UConn. Who knows? So it may not be an upset like most people perceive. But this is what makes him a great coach. 35, 36 errors. So he can go in there, into that locker room, make sure their heads don't get big, and he'll point out every one of those so-called errors, and it'll improve the team. They have a walkover on Saturday at Seton Hall, who's just horrendous. And I think, I mean, they're ninth in the country. When was the last time that happened?
And I see they have they did have back-to-back years now of former Seton Hall guys. I see Kadari Richmond's on this team now. I mean,
he's a key guy for them.
That's so remarkable because Adai Wusu was that leader in the locker room last year for them. I mean,
but Kadari Richmond's a much better player.
Well, Kadari, when his time at Seton Hall, he was basically player of the game almost every night. That kid lit up the scoreboard. So it's good to see him succeed. You're a Seton Hall fan, but when you see these guys succeed in other jerseys, I know it's St. John's and the rivalry.
Yeah, no, that doesn't make me happy. I'm not like you that way. That doesn't make me happy. I'm not happy when a guy not all the time, Alex. Most of the time, when you're gone, you're gone. A couple of times in my life, when the Mets screwed Tom Seaver and traded him, all Met fans universally rooted for Tom Seaver when he was on the Reds, when he was on the White Sox.
And that's why when he went to his 300th win,
I was there. Well, he won at Yankee Stadium that day. I was at the game with my friends, fellow Met fans, and there was 50,000 people in the place, and 30,000 of them were rooting for Seaver. But most of the time, I don't care. I mean,
now here's where I'm a little nervous, right? So Saquon wins the first year out of the Giants uniform into the Eagles. Yankee fans, I hope this isn't a pattern where Soto wins his first year as a Met. I would not want to see that happen. Okay,
I want to see that happen.
Of course you do, Louis. But we'll have to see. Anything else? I know you want to talk about the Hall of Fame, and look, I'm going to just be very blunt right now. Eli, yes, beat Brady twice. That's an accomplishment. The way he did it was still remarkable. I mean, the way he got out of that, and he did lead the team down the field for those winning drives. But we always had our gripes with him in the regular season. I feel like Hall of Fame looks at an all-around player, how you were in the regular season, the postseason. He'll be a second ballot, but maybe first ballot is a stretch to think he would be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Okay. I know the quarterback position is different than other positions in football. I understand that. It's a key position. It's one of the most important positions in football. But Eli Manning was one of 5 first-year nominees, along with Luke Kuechly, Adam Vinatieri, Terrell Suggs, and Marshall Yander. All of those guys that I just mentioned, with the exception of Eli, were first-team All-NFL. Kuechly, 5 times first team All Pro. He was a defensive rookie of the year. He was the NFL defensive player of the year.
With the Colts, or which team am I thinking?
With the Panthers, Luke Kuechly, the kid from Boston College. Adam Vinatieri, 4-time Super Bowl winner, clutch kicks, 3-time first team All NFL, 2004 scoring champion. Terrell Suggs, NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year in 2003, Defensive Player of the Year in 2011. Played on 2 Super Bowl winning teams, one at the end of the career when he was a backup at Kansas City, and one he had a main part when they beat San Francisco in the Superdome when the lights went out. Marshall Yanda, a great guard, 2-time first team All Pro, 5-time second team All Pro, member of the All Decade team in the 2010s. And he played on that Super Bowl championship team in Baltimore 34, San Francisco 31. Eli Manning has never gotten one MVP vote, not even a 10th place vote. He's never gotten an MVP vote. The only black type he has in regular season is he led the NFL in interceptions 3 times. Yes, I know he's in the top 10 in all-time passing yards. I get it. I'm not saying he shouldn't be in, but if Luke Kuechly couldn't get in on the first ballot, which is a travesty, how can anybody complain about Eli Manning getting on the first ballot? And I do believe if you're a Hall of Famer, you're a Hall of Famer, but first ballot does mean something. The fact that Kuechly didn't get in as a 5-time Pro Bowl, All NFL, Defensive Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, led the league in tackles 2 or 3 times.
Right.
I mean, I know I've heard all these people complaining that Eli didn't get in. Yes, I know he was Super Bowl MVP twice, but really, let's face it. With 12 minutes to go in that Super Bowl, that historic Super Bowl, which the Giants beat the Patriots, their only loss of the year. With 12 minutes to go, the Giants had 3 friggin' points. 3. They were losing 7-3. So again, he'll get in. So everybody's got to calm down. But if these guys didn't get in before him, how could people complain about Eli Manning not getting in?
I'm looking at your room, by the way. I love the backdrop. Is that the retired Islander or Ranger numbers? Are any signatures back there, Louis?
That is retired. That is retired Islander numbers that one of my friends who works in the NHL gave me. It's the retired numbers of Dennis Potvin, Clark Gillies, Brian Trottier, Mike Bossy, Bobby Nystrom, and the great clutch goalie Billy Smith, all who played on those teams that won 4 in a row.
And then is that Klecko right there, lineman of the year? Or
NFL lineman of the year, that is Joe Klecko and Joe Fields back in 1986. A year the Jets did make the playoffs and then lost one of the toughest games in their history that they had wrapped up in Cleveland in double overtime. A terrible loss for the Jets. Yeah.
Very cool. No, I love the back. I love when you go into people's rooms and you see what they have in the backdrop. It's made the Zoom era very different, you know.
It has.
Anyway, back to this Hall of Fame conversation real quick. The Sharp, and I get it. The Sharp because of his brother, and then of course Antonio Gates, another one.
He should have made it last year, Alex. The fact he wasn't a first-time Hall of Famer.
Gates is a guy that was on those Charger teams that just they didn't get to that next level, and I always feel like that's the shortfall of the Chargers. They have all these great players, they just don't know how to get to the next level. I don't know if that's organizational or what, but they just don't.
It could be just one of those things, but you're 100% correct on it. They just don't. They have all these great players, Phillip Rivers. They've had great receivers.
LaDainian Tomlinson.
They had the great LaDainian Tomlinson, a Hall of Famer. You're right. Yep.
So that's good for Antonio Gates. But I want to ask you this because Kuechly was sort of in that same situation with Carolina, right? They were there with Cam a little bit, but whenever you see these guys stand out on weaker teams, that makes them even more Hall of Fame worthy, wouldn't you say?
Well, again, he was so good, Kuechly. I don't care if he was on the Chiefs, if he's on Carolina. he was that good. And the fact that he didn't get in on his first ballot, to me, that's a head scratcher. I wish I was in that room when they were voting on Kuechly. It's really strange. I thought the guy, to me, when I watched him play, the guy was spectacular every week.
I
And
know you want. Do you wish these writer or associations would reform their way of thinking or have any kind of changes? I mean,
well, it's a little bit different. The Major League Baseball has 400 writers, media people that vote on it. And I guess you'd had to cover Major League Baseball for 10 years for at least 100 games a year. That's what it used to be. I'm sure it still is. But in the NFL, it's 50 media members, mostly writers. I'm not sure if they're all writers, in a room, and each writer makes an argument for a guy from the team that they covered. So I know for Eli Manning, Bob Glauber of Newsday made the presentation for Eli. He made Eli's presentation of why he should be a Hall of Famer. Bob Glauber is now retired, a news guy for the most part, but he covered the Jets and Giants for Newsday. So, but that's how the NFL does it. But it's only 50 guys in a room, and 50 guys and gals in a room who cover the NFL. Just, it's a little strange. Like Gary Myers, was got Klecko after all these years. He did that on Justice. He got Klecko in. He was his presenter. He was the one who fought the fight to get Joe Klecko in the Hall of Fame.
And he's got a new book out, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And
he's written a bunch of books lately
with Gary Myers, and also he was always good. I listened to him on different things over the years as well. All right. Speaking of media, did you like the way Media Row was covered? Radio Row, did you follow it at all? I know you probably were glued to TV and see how they were doing on Radio Row.
Yeah, Radio Row, I think because of Zoom, apparently there wasn't that many Radio Row people down there as in the past. Apparently on Friday, 90% of them were out of there. But most of the players that are interviewed not only talk about the NFL, talk about the game, but they're all hawking something. Even Gronkowski, he was on with Mad Dog on Friday, but he was hawking. He was a spokesperson for Bounty.
Okay.
So because
a lot of these guys get these sponsorships, and that's how they get on Radio Row. And
that's what it is all week. So, but I don't know. You might see radio might become a thing of the past. So who the heck knows? Because radio stations don't have to send a guy out there for a week and a producer and a board op and spend all that money for a hotel room and space in the convention center or the hotel where Radio Row is. Who knows what the future, because of technology, what the future of Radio Row might be.
Were you surprised, though, despite the blowout, they broke ratings? I see they were like the most watched Super Bowl. Is that correct?
Yeah. I thought going into the game they would break the record. But I didn't think they would break the record if it was 34-0 with 2 or 3 minutes to go in the third quarter. The fact that they broke the record did surprise me.
Well, I think it's people actually more grip to it, right? Like, oh my God, the Chiefs are actually going to be taken down. I mean,
a very good point.
We didn't see that happening. But not just that, they were taken down by 40-6. The score is, it's funny. I was still thinking, well, why don't they just turn off the lights like they did 11 years ago, make this a little closer? Because remember, the Ravens were blowing out the Niners at that time, and I loved it because it was the Harbaugh Bowl and all that. And I didn't say this on the air last week because I was more focused on getting Kevin Harlan back on the show, like getting that clip played. But, I fed Kevin Harlan the information during that blackout for him to be talking about it on then Dow Global Sports. So I feel like I played a role as an intern getting out the information on the blackout. It's just all the connections to that game were coming to mind because that was the first time since 11 years it was Beck and Nola. So, and we saw the president there, and the screen time debate between him and Taylor, they had nothing else to talk about, Lou. That was the problem. They had nothing else to talk about. So
they had nothing to talk about. I mean, they really didn't. And you can't blame Kevin Burkhardt. You can't blame Tom Brady. They had nothing to talk about. There was no game. The most I was surprised that they would win a game that in dominant fashion
mm-hmm.
without Barkley basically
right.
doing anything. I mean, he had 97 yards total in the game. I think his longest run was 9 yards. But it doesn't matter, obviously. They won the game.
I know. And Kevin Burkhardt goes, well, there he goes. And it was like a 9 yard run. It was just like, oh, there's that burst of Barkley or something like it's a 9 yard run. What are we talking about here? But
right. No,
it was,
I mean,
it was fascinating.
Kevin Burkhardt, when it was 34-0, was trying to make the game somewhat interesting. And sometimes an announcer can hurt himself when he does that, when everybody watching knows it's out of reach.
Oh, he was trying to keep it interesting.
He was trying to keep it interesting. I think at one point he said the Chiefs are 5 possessions behind, like it's a basketball
let me ask you this. Wait, we didn't even talk about this part yet. That first flag on the offensive face mask, it was a legitimate call, but I know the wheels were turning and people, here we go, they're going to rig it. Did you feel like they were like, uh-oh, there's going to be a first up for debate call? Or it was a legitimate call, by the way.
It was 50-50. I would not have called it. I didn't think it interfered with the play with the defensive back trying to defend AJ
Brown, yep.
Yeah, and so I would not have.
By the way, you mentioned Barkley's not running, but he made an incredible catch at about the 3 yard line. That was a great catch.
That was an incredible catch, and so he had a great year. Good for him. The Giant. I don't want to hear anything about the Giants is the wrong thing. The Giants is the right thing in trying to build their team. So
the only wrong thing they did was they didn't give him a support system back when he was first drafted. That was really
that's all you can say. I mean, this Eagle offensive line, and I've been watching football for 6 decades. This Eagle offensive line is as good as the Dallas offensive line in the early 90s. The Washington offensive line in the 80s that won 3 Super Bowls in the 80s and into the early part of the 90s. And what they call the Electric Company in Buffalo from like 72 to 76 was with OJ, when OJ was putting up those ridiculous numbers.
Amazing.
But yeah, this offensive line is as good as it might be the best I've ever seen.
All right, I get bothered when they put out the new odds for Super Bowl 60. By the way, are we gonna go, Louis, and get our sponsor and get us down there for Super Bowl 60?
Yeah, we need somebody to sponsor us because the tickets are like $6,000.
That would be, I mean, the 60th Super Bowl. I would freaking love to go and do that as coverage. That would be special. So maybe you and I can work on that this year. Who knows?
Yeah, we gotta work on it, Alex. I'd love to go. It's the only major sporting championship event that I have never been to.
And where is it, by the way? I don't even know where it is.
Let's see. It's in.
Is it in Vegas?
I think it's in Vegas next year, and I think it's in Los Angeles the year after that, and I think it's in Atlanta the year after that.
They should put it in Philly for the 250th birthday of America. They should have done that next year. Okay, that's.
Well, if Philly had a dome stadium, they might have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was really happy that it was secure in New Orleans because they've had a rough month, obviously leading to this, and there was a lot of security concerns, but thank God nothing happened. All right, Lou, I want to look forward for a minute because obviously we're not going to stop Terminello's take out of the Super Bowl. So what are you looking for in the next couple months? It's March Madness now. Baseball's here. Pitchers and catchers reporting. By the way, I don't know about you. This part of February into March, and then March with all the baseball and then March Madness. It's a fun month. And the Rangers still in that playoff hunt. It's going to be an interesting couple months here.
Oh, I think it is. And I'm actually looking forward to, even though I don't think it was necessary, but I'm looking forward to the Four Nations. I'll watch all those games. And
I was going to take Gabby up to Boston, by the way. Side note, I was going to take her up there, but it's going to be snowy. So I said, nope, not happening. It isn't too much snow for that, but hopefully a lot of people have fun up there.
Now, traveling may not be easy in the snow, but I'm going to watch the games, obviously. I'm looking forward to the end of the hockey season, and the Stanley Cup playoffs. Hopefully, the NBA playoffs will be better than the NBA regular season. And I'm looking forward to
Well,
the baseball
Doncic
season.
had his debut last night. Is it? Have you watched the video? He looks a little lost on the Lakers. Like he almost still looks a bit shocked. Are you reading into that at all, or not really?
Well, again, that's his first game. I don't read into that at all. I mean, 10 days ago, he thought he was going to be a Maverick for life. And now,
Mm-hmm.
you know, remember, we're still dealing with human beings, not robots.
I know it's very upside down, so we'll have to see. And then one last thing, someone who will never be in the Hall of Fame because of his steroid use, although he just had incredible numbers, A-Rod is a majority owner of the Timberwolves. And I got to ask you this. You kept asking yourself, why did the Wolves trade Karl Anthony Towns? And I'm like, well, maybe they had an apathetic owner after all. Like, I don't know. The guy's owned them for about 30 years. It just, maybe they need that fresh blood now with him becoming owner, A-Rod.
I would say so. And he also has ownership of the Lynx, the WNBA team now. And we'll see what happens.
They were down like 18-1 at one point yesterday. Okay. It's not fun. And I don't know why they thought getting Randall and maybe it was a money thing to save the money from Towns. I don't know. But it's not worked out for Minnesota.
No, it really hasn't. And I still don't understand it. I mean, because Karl Anthony Towns was under contract for 2 more years with the T-Wolves. And here's a team that was right there. So I don't know. But the NBA, like I said to you, this has been a very NBA strange season. So
absolutely. All right, Lou. Well, any other thoughts that you wanted to cover before today? I mean, we should have been doing an hour long of Super Bowl, but there was nothing to talk about. So what else is there right now?
Well, one last thing. I know there was some controversy that Lamar Jackson was first team All Pro, and Josh Allen won the MVP. As we've talked about on this show, there was a lot of MVP candidates who would be deserving. If Joe Burrow had won the MVP, just because, even though they were only 9-8, the only reason they were 9-8 was because of Joe Burrow. I couldn't scream. If Jackson won it, you couldn't scream. If you gave it to Barkley, you couldn't scream. If you gave it to Jaden Daniels, who won Offensive Rookie of the Year, if he won MVP, you couldn't scream. So this was a tough year for the voters. There was a lot of, a lot of worthy candidates. Even Mahomes was a worthy candidate because let's face it, this Chief team was not a great offensive team in any way, shape, or form, and he always came through with those plays to help them win those 17 straight
in the last 2 minutes type of thing, right?
So he was definitely an MVP candidate. So that's the only thing I know people are like scratching their heads on it. Very, very tough year for MVP. Allen, I have no problem that he won it. I mean, he was fantastic.
I think he also won because he made the best of what he had. I mean,
I agree. I agree with that 100%. He put him on his back.
Yeah. So there you go. And we could say that for Lindor. He should have been MVP. But what do we know, right, Louis? All right.
This year, he's going to win it this year.
He might. One last thing, because I want to get this on video. I never thought I'd say Snoop Dogg had a more explosive monologue regarding the NFL than the Super Bowl. He was more explosive than the Super Bowl was. I never thought I'd say that, but there it is.
Well, I can't deny that. That's for sure.
He was funny. He was very. I kind of like the Chiefs riffing because it just makes. There are obvious things that make you feel like the refs are in the back pocket sometimes, But anyway, Louis, we will talk to you soon, and here we go. Spring training. I'm excited. I know the buzz is going to be all over next week when Juan Soto gets down to. Is he going to go in like a horse? On a horse like Cespedes there, or what's he going to go in on?
Yeah, no, I don't think he's going to be on a horse. By the way, did you hear that Cespedes wants to come back? He wants to come back into me. He's 39 years old. He hasn't played in 4 years. And he wants to launch a comeback.
Well, we were at Pinstripe Pride. A lot of those guys are still in shape, so it looks like. I mean, some of these guys look like they could still play, and they've been out of the game for 10 years already. So
It's amazing. These athletes are amazing. That's certainly.
and while we're on it, kudos to Wade Boggs, Hall of Famer. He did beat cancer. How cool of a story is that?
That's a good story. Those are the stories we love to hear.
So kudos to him, and he was at Pinstripe Pride, and I love when they give their time for all of this. You know, it's nice to see them in the community like that. Anyway, before we go, do you think that when Mahomes losing the obsession the media has seemingly had with him is over, or will they still be obsessing with him?
No, I think that obviously he's still the best player in the league. I don't know if they're going to without a three-peat. That was the big thing. If they obsess over that, um, I guess this puts a little bit of the talk about him being the greatest of all time on the back burner. To me, Brady's the greatest football player, not only quarterback, since I've been watching football. Mahomes still has a shot. The Chiefs dynasty is not going away. They're still in the dynasty years. But the media will probably, because the Eagles are now the champions, their eyes will probably be more on the Philadelphia team. Hurts, Barkley, Sirianni, AJ Brown, who always is fighting on the sidelines with his coach or with somebody. So,
well, maybe we'll do a pregame show outside that Giants Eagles matchup in MetLife. I mean, that would be a pretty cool thing to do, like the pregame show right outside of it.
I would love to do it.
That's going to be electric. Let's set it up. All right, Lou. Talk to you later on Terminello's Take for this week.
Thank you, buddy.